Commissioner had seen weapons for 400 years. She had watched empires rise and fall based on who had the better plasma lance or the more accurate gravity disruptor. She had signed approval documents for neural that could turn an enemy's brain into soup from 3-star systems away. Nothing surprised her anymore. Nothing made her feel anything at all. The Galactic Arms Exposition happened every 5 cycles on Meridian 7, a neutral station that floated in the empty space between territorial borders. Species from all 12 recognized territories came to show off their military toys. They brought their famous heat razors. Her own people displayed elegant sonic dampeners that could silence a battlefield. The demonstrated living ammunition that could think and hunt on its own. Walked through the exhibition hall with her, making notes and trying not to yawn. Her translucent skin showed the pale blue of boredom. Her 4 eyes moved slowly from booth to booth. Same weapons, different cycles. Better range here. Improved efficiency there. Nothing that would change the balance of power in any meaningful way. Then she saw the human booth. The humans were new. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 standard cycles ago, which made them infants by galactic standards. Most species ignored them completely. There was a mess of competing nations that somehow never managed to destroy themselves, though not for lack of trying. They had no unified government, no single military doctrine, and no reputation for anything except being loud and strangely optimistic. Their booth was small and poorly decorated. A banner hung crooked from the ceiling. It said Earth Defense Coalition in both human script and badly translated universal. 3 humans stood behind a table covered with objects that looked like they belonged in a museum of primitive technology. Almost walked past, then one of the humans waved at her. "Commissioner, do you have a moment?" She stopped. Protocol required her to give every registered exhibitor at least minimal attention. She checked her. The humans had registered in the kinetic weapons category. She almost laughed. Kinetic weapons had been obsolete for thousands of cycles. Most species had abandoned them before they even left their home systems. "You have 5 minutes," she said. The human who had waved introduced himself as Doctor. He was short by human standards, with dark hair going gray at the edges and a smile that seemed permanently attached to his face. He wore a uniform covered in patches and pins that meant nothing too. "Thank you so much for stopping by," Doctor said. "I know kinetic weapons aren't exactly the hot-ticket item here, but I think you might find what we have interesting." "Doubted this very much. Proceed." Doctor picked up a small cylinder from the table. It was green, about the size of a drinking vessel, with a metal ring attached to the top. It looked like something a child might have made in a craft class. "This is what we call a grenade," he said. "It's one of our oldest designs. Very simple. You pull this pin, throw it, and about 3 seconds later it explodes." "Explodes?" asked, the word translated oddly. "You mean it releases energy?" "That's one way to put it, yes." She looked at the cylinder with new interest. "What is the yield?" Doctor told her. The number was laughably small compared to modern weapons. She entered it into her anyway because that was her job. "Would you like a demonstration?" Doctor asked. Considered refusing. She had 40 more booths to visit before the day ended, but something about the human's enthusiasm made her curious. It was the same look she had seen on young engineers before they unveiled their first inventions. Pure, genuine excitement. "Very well," she said. "The demonstration chamber is this way." The demonstration chamber was a reinforced room at the center of the exhibition hall. It had 7 layers of containment barriers made from materials strong enough to withstand the output of most conventional weapons. Observation windows lined the walls, protected by additional shielding. Several other delegates wandered over to watch, curious about what the primitive humans might have brought. Doctor entered the chamber with his grenade, and the other observers took their positions behind the windows. A delegate made a joke about humans still using fire sticks, and several others laughed. "Ready when you are," said through the communication system. Doctor pulled the pin and threw the grenade toward the center of the chamber. Then he dove behind the protective barrier installed for exactly this purpose. The explosion happened faster than expected. One moment there was a small green cylinder sitting on the floor. The next moment there was light and sound and force like nothing she had felt in centuries. The first containment barrier shattered, then the second, then the third. Alarms began screaming throughout the exhibition hall. The observation window in front of cracked in 3 places. She gripped her podium so hard that her claws broke through the composite material. Species who had not felt fear in generations scrambled for the exits. The delegate who had made the joke fell backward off his observation platform. A representative wrapped itself in a protective ball and rolled under a table. When the smoke cleared, Doctor stood up and brushed dust off his uniform. He was still smiling. "Sorry about that," he said. "I probably should have mentioned that was a fragmentation grenade. The metal casing breaks apart and becomes additional projectiles. That's the really interesting part, actually. The chemical explosion is only half the weapon. The other half is turning the weapon itself into ammunition." Could not speak. Her 4 eyes stared at the ruined chamber. 3 of 7 containment barriers were gone, just gone, reduced to rubble and twisted metal. How, she finally managed, how is this possible? "Oh, that's just basic chemistry," Doctor said. "The explosive compound is trinitrotoluene. We've been using it for about 200 years. It's actually considered pretty low power by our standards." "Low power? Yeah, would you like to see something bigger?" The silence in the observation area was absolute. Every species present stared at the human with expressions ranging from horror to disbelief. Felt her internal organs rearranging themselves in the way they did when her body prepared for extreme danger. "Define bigger," she said. Doctor walked back to his booth and returned with a larger cylinder. This one was about half a meter long and painted a dull gray. He held it casually, like it was nothing special. "This is a thermobaric charge," he said. "Instead of a single explosion, it disperses a fuel cloud and then ignites it. The result is a pressure wave that can destroy reinforced structures and anything inside them. We use these for clearing buildings and cave systems." "What is the yield?" Doctor told her. The number made no sense. Checked her translator, thinking it must have malfunctioned. It had not. "That cannot be correct," she said. "I can show you if you want, though we might need a bigger chamber." "No," the word came out louder than she intended. Several delegates flinched. "No, that will not be necessary." She looked at the ruined demonstration chamber, then at the gray cylinder in the human's hands, then at the small green grenade still sitting on the table at the human booth. Her mind tried to process what she had just witnessed. These primitives, these loud, chaotic, infant species who could not even agree on a single government. They had developed weapons of this magnitude using only chemistry and kinetic force. They had done it centuries before they reached the stars. They had done it so long ago that they considered these weapons primitive. "Doctor," she said slowly, "are there weapons more powerful than the one you are holding?" The human's smile changed slightly. It became something harder to read. "Commissioner," he said, "this is the small stuff. This is what we bring to demonstrate because we figured showing you the big stuff on our first visit would be rude." Felt very old suddenly. 400 years of experience, and she had never felt so completely unprepared. "I think," she said, "that we need to schedule a formal inquiry." Doctor nodded. "Of course, we're happy to cooperate, just let us know what you need." Looked at the cracked observation window, the terrified delegates, the casual way the human held enough destructive power to level a building. She needed a lot of things. Answers, explanations, and possibly the strongest drink her species could metabolize. The inquiry began 3 cycles later. traveled to Earth personally. She brought a team of weapons analysts from 5 different species, a security detail of 12, and enough recording equipment to document a war. The humans welcomed them with what they called a red carpet treatment, which apparently meant food, music, and an excessive number of handshakes. The human was exactly as chaotic as the reports suggested. Different nations with different flags and different languages and different everything. They had achieved faster-than-light travel as a species, but they still argued about invisible lines drawn on their planet's surface. It made no sense, too. It made no sense to any of the delegates. But the weapons made even less sense. Their first stop was a manufacturing facility in a nation called the United States. The building was huge, gray, and surrounded by fences topped with sharp wire. Guards checked their credentials at 3 different points before allowing them inside. The humans took security seriously, at least. Inside, found an assembly line producing the same green cylinders she had seen at the exposition. Thousands of them, moving along conveyor belts, being filled and sealed and packed into crates. Workers moved efficiently between stations, checking quality and making adjustments. It looked almost boring. "This is a standard fragmentation grenade production line," their guide explained. She was a military officer named Colonel Sarah, a tall woman with short gray hair and a voice that suggested she was used to being obeyed. "We produce about 10,000 units per day at this facility alone. There are 17 similar facilities across the country." Translator must have malfunctioned again. "Per day." "Yes, Commissioner. This is considered low-volume production." The weapons analysts exchanged looks. One of them, a mathematician, began calculating something on her. Her tentacles trembled as she worked. "That is more explosive ordnance in one day than the produce in a standard cycle," the mathematician said quietly. Colonel shrugged. "We've been at this for a while." They toured the facility for several hours, learned about primers and detonators and shaped charges. She learned about different explosive compounds with names she could not pronounce. She learned about something called fragmentation patterns, and how humans had spent decades perfecting the art of making metal break apart in ways that caused maximum damage. The humans spoke about these things casually. They used the same tone might use to discuss art or literature. For them, this was simply knowledge, ordinary knowledge that every military officer learned as a matter of course. "What is the oldest explosive weapon your species has developed?" she asked Colonel. "Depends on how you define explosive," the colonel said. "We've been using black powder for about 1,000 years. The Chinese invented it for fireworks, then someone figured out you could use it to launch projectiles at people. Things escalated from there." 1,000 years. Give or take, we didn't have precise dating methods back then. Felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. Most species developed their first explosive weapons after achieving basic space travel. The power requirements were too complex otherwise, but humans had done it with chemistry alone. They had done it 1,000 years before they reached their own moon. "Things escalated," she repeated. "What does that mean exactly?" Colonel led them to a different part of the facility. This section was more heavily guarded. The doors required multiple codes and biometric verification. What they found inside made wish she had stayed home. "These are our thermobaric munitions," the colonel said. "Fuel-air explosives. They work by dispersing a flammable aerosol, then igniting it. The pressure wave alone can kill anything in the blast radius, even if they're protected from the heat and fragmentation." The weapons were larger here. Some were the size of transport containers. Labels on the crates contained yield figures that's mind refused to process. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you build such things?" Colonel paused. For the first time, her professional demeanor cracked slightly. Something complicated passed behind her eyes. "Commissioner, humans have been fighting each other since before we had history to record it. Every generation, Someone builds a bigger weapon. The other side builds a counter. Then someone builds something bigger still. We've been locked in this cycle for our entire existence as a species. That is insane. Maybe, but it's also why we're very, very good at this. One of the weapons analysts, a physicist, raised his hand. Colonel, my calculations suggest that the weapons you have shown us could destabilize a small planet's tectonic structure. Is this accurate? Probably not these specific weapons, the colonel said, but we have others that could. The room went silent. Show us, said. She did not want to see, but she needed to understand. Colonel nodded slowly. All right, but we'll need to visit a different kind of facility for that. The museum was quiet and clean. It smelled like old documents and controlled climate systems. Displays lined the walls with photographs and models and explanatory text. Human children walked through with teachers, learning about history. Stopped in front of a glass case at the center of the main hall. Inside was a replica of something large and cylinder-shaped, painted silver and covered in fins. This is a scale model of the AN-602 hydrogen bomb, their museum guide said. He was an elderly human with thick glasses and a gentle voice, also known as Tsar. It was detonated in 1961 as a demonstration of capability. What was the yield? Asked. The guide told her. She converted the figure using her. Then she checked the conversion 3 times, certain she had made an error. She had not. This weapon, she said slowly, produced energy equivalent to a small stellar flare. That's approximately correct, yes. Why would you build such a thing? The elderly guide smiled sadly. It was not the happy smile Doctor had worn at the exposition. This was the smile of someone who had asked the same question many times and never found a satisfying answer. To prove we could, he said, and to make sure the other side knew we could. Stared at the silver model. It had been built over 80 cycles ago, by human reckoning, before they had computers, before they had satellites, before they had any of the technology that other species considered basic requirements for civilization. They had built a weapon capable of stellar-level destruction, using nothing but chemistry and physics, and the desperate need to be more dangerous than their neighbors. How many of these exist? She asked. The guide did not answer. Colonel stepped forward instead. That's classified information, Commissioner, but I can tell you that the number is not small. Turned away from the display, she had seen enough. She had seen far more than enough. I need to return to Meridian 7, she said. The Commission must be informed immediately. The emergency session of the Cosmic Armory Commission was the fastest in recorded history. Presented her findings to the 12 territorial representatives in a sealed chamber. She showed them the footage from the demonstration. She shared the manufacturing figures. She displayed the yield calculations for human thermobaric weapons, conventional explosives, and finally the nuclear devices. No one spoke for a very long time. This is a threat to galactic stability, the representative said finally. These primitives have weapons that rival our most advanced arsenals. They develop them using nothing but chemical reactions and brute force. They have thousands of manufacturing facilities, the representative added. They can produce more explosive ordnance in a single day than most species produce in a cycle, if they decided to weaponize their full industrial capacity. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. We must ban these weapons, another representative said. Immediately and completely. Humans cannot be allowed to trade in explosive devices of any kind. Had expected this response. She had come to the same conclusion during her journey home from Earth. A ban will be difficult to enforce, she pointed out. The humans have been developing these weapons for 1,000 years. The knowledge is spread across their entire species. We cannot simply erase it. Then we ban the trade, the representative said. We prohibit humans from selling, sharing, or demonstrating any explosive technology to other species. We quarantine this knowledge before it spreads. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in the Commission's history, all 12 territorial representatives agreed on something within a single rotation. Human explosive devices were banned from galactic trade, military use, and public demonstration. The technical specifications were classified as restricted information. Any species found attempting to acquire human explosive technology would face severe sanctions. Delivered the news to Doctor personally. She expected anger. She expected protests. She expected humans to argue and bargain and threaten, as most species did when faced with restrictions. Instead, Doctor just shrugged. "We figured this might happen," he said. "Don't worry, Commissioner, we understand." "You are not upset." Honestly, a little relieved. Some of us thought showing off at the exposition was a bad idea in the first place. Too much too fast, you know. People need time to adjust. Studied the human carefully. His expression was open and friendly, just as it had been at the exposition. But there was something else there now. Something she could not quite identify. "What will you do now?" she asked. "Go home. Focus on other things. We've got plenty of problems to solve that don't involve weapons." "That is surprisingly reasonable." Doctor smiled. "We're a reasonable species, Commissioner, most of the time anyway." The humans packed up their exhibits and left Meridian 7 without incident. They shook hands with the few delegates willing to interact with them. They thanked the station staff for their hospitality. They boarded their ship and departed for Earth, and the galaxy collectively breathed a sigh of relief. Then strange things began to happen. Pirate raids in the outer territories dropped by 60% within 3 cycles. The hegemony quietly from 3 disputed systems they had occupied for decades. A warlord who had terrorized the fringe world since before was born suddenly announced he was suing for peace. The Commission noticed. They investigated. They found no evidence of human involvement, no weapons sales, no military deployments, nothing that violated the terms of the ban. But the rumors spread anyway. "Human security consultants," people whispered. "For the right price, they'll station themselves in your system. They don't bring weapons. They don't need to. Everyone knows what they could bring." Heard these rumors and felt something she had not felt in 400 years. Uncertainty. She had banned human weapons to protect the galaxy from destabilization, but she was beginning to wonder if she had simply changed the nature of the threat. Humans could not sell their explosives, so instead they sold their presence, their reputation, the unspoken promise of what would happen to anyone foolish enough to attack a system under their protection. It was brilliant. It was terrifying. It was exactly what she should have expected from a species that had spent 1,000 years perfecting the art of destruction. 3 cycles after the ban, a diplomatic arrived from Earth. The humans were formally requesting reconsideration of certain restrictions, not for weapons, they assured her, just for something they called fireworks. The attached documentation explained that fireworks were used for celebrations. They produced colorful lights in the sky through controlled chemical reactions. The humans wanted permission to sell them for an upcoming galactic festival celebrating the anniversary of the first contact between humans and the. Read the ingredients list for standard fireworks: oxidizers, metal salts for color, and at the core propelling everything into the sky, gunpowder. Gunpowder, the same compound humans had invented 1,000 years ago, the starting point for everything that followed, the foundation of their entire explosive technology tree. She picked up her official stamp, the one reserved for high-priority requests, the one that carried the weight of 4 centuries of experience and the authority of the Cosmic Armory Commission. She stamped the request with a single word: DENIAD. Then she opened her desk drawer and pulled out a bottle of distillation, the strongest drink her species could safely metabolize. She poured herself a generous glass. Outside her window, stars glittered peacefully in the void. Somewhere out there, humans were going about their lives, building things, inventing things, probably figuring out new ways to make chemicals react with violent force. They would be back. They would ask again and again. They would smile their friendly smiles and shrug their casual shrugs and pretend that they did not understand why the galaxy was so concerned. But understood now. She had seen their museums and their factories. She had met the cheerful engineers and the hardened military officers. She had looked into their history and found nothing but escalation, from sticks and stones to weapons that could crack planets. They were not dangerous because they were malicious. They were dangerous because they were creative and patient and very, very good at making things explode. She finished her drink and poured another. It was going to be a long few centuries.